All righty. I had to write this young lady's name down phonetically because I didn't want to mess it up. All righty. Let's see. Jane Doe. No, I'm lying. That's not it. Okay. Okay. I'm sorry. I got a New Orleans education. It takes a minute. All righty. Miss Bekah Hawrot Weigel. That's because I wrote two O's. Hawrot Weigel. All right. I did better? Okay. Hold on a second. I'm going to do you right this time. Miss Bekah Hawrot Weigel.
Got it.
Thank you. All right, so she's going to talk to you once again, really smart stuff. Well, that's me. That ain't, okay, great. There'll be some smart stuff up on the board. But as always, here's what you're going to know. Number one, 4 wonderful children, right? Mm-hmm. Awesome. Number 2, near and dear to my heart, 10 years, college English teacher. Mm-hmm. Ooh. And of course, like all programmers, apparently, she lifts weights. What is, bro? Y'all just be swole. I asked Deborah, probably way less than this young lady. All right, so I'm excited to see. Am I going to understand? Does your organization need a community? Will I understand any of this?
You got that. You got it all. Mm-hmm.
I said that right?
Yeah, you got this.
Oh, yes. I'm going to give a presentation after hers about hers. All righty? Ladies and gentlemen, please make a whole lot of noise for Miss Bekah Hawrot Weigel.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm very, very excited to be here. Thank you to MagnoliaJS for and for all the speakers. Have all been great talks, and I'm down to. Today I'm going to be talking about community. So I first started building community when I was in 2nd grade. I formed a Little Women's Club, and we talked about the book Little Women. So I've been doing this for a while, but then there was some drama, and it splintered off into 2 Little Women clubs, and I've gotten a little bit better since then. I have some idea of what I'm doing now. I'm the technical community builder at DeepGram, which is a speech-to-text AI company, and I started the developer community Virtual Coffee. So we need to understand what a community is as we go into this, because it's one of those buzzwords that you hear a lot, and people, when they use the word, they mean a lot of different things. So we're going to start off with some level setting and get a definition. At its very core, community is a group of people that feel connected in some way. There's a sense of belonging there. There's often an interest or a product or a practice that ties people together. And I know this is pretty general, and sometimes it helps to understand what something is by also knowing what it's not. So community it's not an audience of people. It's not people who just come to a place to get their questions answered. It is not a group that doesn't have a central focus. It's not a group that doesn't interact in some way. And so hopefully this is giving you a better sense of what it means to be part of a community. And so why does everyone want a community? It's, again, one of those really trendy words. Communities are invested. Community members are invested in the groups that they belong to. They interact with each other. They have personal connections that helps them to feel a part of something. And they do things like promote brand awareness in authentic ways. They talk about communities they love. They talk about people. They talk about the mission of the community. So I want you just to think for a second about the communities that you belong to or that you're a part of. Think about what draws you back to those communities. Why do you keep going back? And sometimes you take a break from those communities for a long time and then you rejoin them. It might be a sports league. It might be an after-hours social interaction or an art club or something like that. But there's a reason why you return to that space. Oh, wait, sorry, I hit that a little too fast. I want to just take a second to look a little bit further about why people want communities. And we're going to go with a big example, which is Salesforce. They have a $140 billion valuation. And they've been innovative with software, yes, but they also have a 2 million person community that helps each other. They organize events, they produce content. They really provide a critical part of the global operation of Salesforce. It's a diverse community that impacts that success. And they also have an annual conference, the Dreamforce Conference, right? And that draws around 200,000 participants, which allows for more community interaction. It allows those bonds to be created a little bit more closely tied together. So what this means is community is a multiplier. It can provide incredible value for your business. People might come for your product, but they're going to stay for your community. They'll return because of the community and the people that are there. So it sounds like this makes sense. We definitely need a community, right? Not so fast. Hold on a second. Let's explore what it means to build a community before you jump into saying that you need one. There's a process to building community, and it's one of those things that's a long-term investment. I don't know if anybody is part of a DevRel team here, but often people say that DevRel is a long game and community is an even longer game. So it takes a lot of work and effort before you start to see any type of return for what you're doing. So I want to also keep in mind that this is a high-level overview of what it means to build and create a community. So there's a lot of details that go in between in each of these steps. So we'll look at community discovery, buy-in, and mission building. So as part of community discovery, we are going to talk about a minimum viable community. So what does that even mean? This is square one. Side note, if you have an existing community or a Slack or Discord that already has customers or other folks there, your approach would probably shift away from this. So this is assuming you're starting brand new. So with a minimum viable community, you start an exploration phase. You don't want to just jump into things, kind of like if you're building a house. You wouldn't just say, here's a plot of land, this looks pretty nice, I'm going to put a house here. You need to do things like explore the challenges. Does it have access to utilities? Is there an access road? What is that like? Is it on a fault line? You need to get a good sense of what you need to build that house before you start building. Building community is very similar because we need to have a good foundation, and we have to explore the territory that we're interested in developing on. The insights that you gain from this exploration will help to create a good support structure for your community that will allow you to level up much faster than if you're constantly trying to change the materials that you're working with, the events that you're doing. So if you take what you learn from this experience, you're more likely to have a successful community that's there for the long term. So what does minimum viable community and community discovery really mean? It's an opportunity to evaluate your potential community members, what they need to gather information, to do some exploration, to see where there is interest. Where does your potential community want to go? What do they want to do? If they love being in the city and you decide to build your house in a rural plot of land in the forest, they're probably not going to follow you. So there are some ways that you can explore who your community members are and the things that they are interested in doing. So this is a list of some of them, and what you see here is for a lot of people who are building community, there's going to be some metrics that need to be tied to that community. And so each of these allows you to collect some metrics, and they involve, some of them involve more time, some of them involve less time. And so finding the ways that allow you to most closely interact with your potential community members or existing community members helps you to understand what they need, where they want to be, and what you need to be doing next. So here we have Twitter Spaces, which allows for some interaction. That's easy metrics. Newsletters are less interaction, more flexible, again, easy metrics. Meetups and other events are really great, but are also really time intense and require a lot more work and effort. So it's balancing what you expect to see out of that and where you can be most impactful. Podcasts and live streams are a little bit more intense in terms of planning project things out like that. Live streams allow for interactivity that can be repurposed in other forms, which can allow you to test things out in multiple ways. So if you have a live stream that turns to a YouTube short and a blog post, then maybe that allows you to explore where your community is living in a couple of different ways. And my favorite is always collaborative challenges. I don't know why there's a colon there. That's a typo. Collaborative challenges allow you to interact with community members, but it also allows community members to interact with each other. So at Virtual Coffee, we do a big Hacktoberfest thing, for example, and we pair mentors and contributors or mentors with maintainers to help to support them during Hacktoberfest, which is a month of open source contributions. So testing those things out allows you to learn more about your community. And so along with this, I think that you should also be thinking about what people want out of a community. This is going to be different for everyone. Not everybody wants to find their best friend in a community. Some people just want to, I say just and I shouldn't. Some people want to come and they want to learn and they want to find out more information about things and interact with other people who are learning in the same way that they are. So understanding what they're looking for is really important. But I think in almost every community, people are looking for some source of support, whether that's from the community members or the community leaders. We're also looking for friendship and relationships. And this doesn't have to be, again, finding your best friend, but it might be, hey, now I know this person that I can speak to at this conference, or you answered one of my questions and you were really kind when you did it. So now, you're on the nice list. There's always should be some opportunities for growth and learning. And I think that that's pretty core in most communities. And it might come in different ways. It might not be subject specific. Are you all learning the same thing? Maybe it's you're learning about each other, or maybe it's learning about other things that are out there that you don't know about. Enthusiasm, collaboration, a sense of belonging, these are all things that help us to feel psychologically safe in the spaces that we live in. And so all of these things help to ensure that your community is stable and and able to grow. So a couple of notes on this. Communities that don't have a mission are often going to have a much harder time with identity, understanding who they are as a group together and what they do. But communities that have too specific of a mission lose the ability to be enriched through deeper conversations, different perspectives, and also not understanding the silent competition that's out there. So if you block those discussions from happening, you're losing depth in your community. Once you go through this discovery, you can start molding your community for your MVC. So a couple of questions as part of this discovery phase. Where are the conversations happening? So you've done some of the things, some of the events or the Twitter spaces or newsletters. How are people continuing the conversations? What are they talking about? Where are the conversations going deeper? And I think that's something that's really key and important to talk about, because you can have surface level conversations and that will sustain you for so long. But what you see in really great, authentic communities is there are some community members that are going to rise up as leaders. It might not be the person who's been in the industry the longest or the person who has the most experience in that technology, but it's somebody that's enthusiastic, they're willing to help others, and often those are the people that are reaching a little bit deeper into those conversations and recognizing that this is not a community member in front of me, this is a person in front of me. And I want to know who this person is, because this allows me to help them and support them in a better way than just seeing them as a community member. And the other thing that you want to think about is where you can connect everyone. So having a single source of truth can make it much easier to engage in conversation. So now that you've done all of these different things, where are you leading them to? Where does the path go, and how can you help support those continued conversations? Once you have this general understanding, you need to get buy-in from your company or your team before you really start building. All right, there are a lot of reasons why buy-in is really important. Your community doesn't scale if only one person is supporting it. If you're on a developer team, you might find yourself in a position where someone says, can't we ask questions in the Slack, Discord, forum, whatever your community space is? If the answer to that is yes, then somebody has to answer those questions. One person can't be responsible for answering all the questions all the time. That's going to lead to burnout, and that for sure doesn't scale. So having your organization buy into this allows you to have support in answering those questions. It leads people on your team to the community space that you have so they can answer or they can interact in some way. So you can't scale unless there's buy-in. You need to have this many-to-many relationship, and that's what community does. While your community is being built, it is probably going to be on you and your team members to provide all of that support. But long term, if you nurture and develop that community, you see the community members are going to be answering and supporting each other. You also need to be responsive. There is nothing worse than entering a quiet Slack or a Discord. It's almost like you're entering a cafeteria and everybody is there and they're just sitting quietly, not talking to each other. That would be super creepy, right? If I walked into that, I would probably just walk back out, right? So you don't need to immediately respond in Slack and Discord. You can give your community members or other people on your team time to answer the questions, but those questions should be answered. It damages your credibility if nobody is answering the questions. Again, community is a long game, and you don't grow a thriving community overnight. It takes time, and there often aren't clear metrics to track as you're building your community. Community needs to grow authentically. Unless you have an already invested community, I really love what Jamstack did when Netlify started the Jamstack community. There was investment in Jamstack. There were people that are excited about it, and they came together in a space and were really lively really quickly. But there was an invested community that was ready for that space to be made for them. Your team is also going to be the example for your community. Those are your first community members. So it's important to remember that great leaders create great leaders. You just need to have that buy-in for that to happen and to be the example for your community. Just a note on the challenges that you might face if you don't have buy-in. Not only will you have to carry more of the weight of your community, but you'll be constantly trying to prove yourself and beg for support from people who don't understand and who aren't committed to the long-term support of the community. That will be the biggest impediment in your success. Once you have buy-in, there's one more step to determine whether or not you need community, and that is in mission building. When I talked earlier about mission and what it is to have too general and too specific, but it's finding that right balance, not too specific, not too broad. Considering all of the things that you've learned through your discovery phase and your process about who your community is, where they live, what they need, and more, you can start to define the purpose of your community. Let's break this down into some questions. Do I have questions? Nope, I'm not done yet, so don't, you gotta stick with me for a couple more minutes here. Think about, first of all, what needs are you feeling? People come to community because they have a need that they want to be met. How are you doing the things that you're doing differently from other communities? If you're doing the same thing, you need to ask yourself why. Why are we starting this community that's going to be exactly like these 5 other communities over here? You are now competition for them. You already have competition, so are you trying to poach their members? What is the point of your community? Are you improving on what those existing communities are doing? And if you are, then how so? Why are you bringing these people together? It has to be more than selling a product. Nobody wants to be sold to all the time. We don't want advertisements all the time. We might want information on the product, but we want to be able to make the decisions about the product and not have it shoved down our throat all the time. There has to be a deeper purpose. Where's collaboration? Is there collaboration happening? Are folks sharing their content together? Are they teaching something? Creating opportunities for growing together? What are they going to do together? This really stems from the questions that I asked above, but we need to think in terms of action. Are they going to be talking, listening, attending, sharing? What action are they doing together? How do the activities around that feel? Are they friendly and laid back? Are they academic and formal? Are they welcoming? You need to set the tone for your community, and that can start with the mission that you have. Letting people know what to expect when they walk into your community is incredibly important to maintaining the psychological safety of your members and helping people to understand where they fit in your community. Now, I'm a community builder, but I would also call myself an introvert sometimes and kind of shy sometimes. When I walk into a room full of people that I don't know, I get really nervous, and I don't know how to talk to people without being super awkward, right? So if I have some understanding of my role in that situation, of where I fit in or what I expect from this group, it's much easier for me to engage in those conversations. Think about the rituals. Rituals are things that your community will do together. So that might be meeting up once a week. Might do Slack check-ins. Every Friday at Virtual Coffee, we have a gratitude post that we put out. And it's just a really nice way to kind of wrap up the week and think about the things that we are grateful for. You might be doing goal-setting sessions. You might be doing learning groups. Think about the shared experiences of your community members. Now, this could mean a couple of different things. Shared experience might mean, what are they bringing from their past into the community? Or what experiences are they sharing together as part of the community? Things like events, pairing sessions, and those sort of things. What do you want to achieve with those experiences and bringing these people together? I find that it's also very helpful to understand who your community personas are. Are you working with new developers, career changers, developers at all stages, founders, more? Understanding who is coming to your community will help you figure out what you need to do to support them. There's been a really big influx of people coming into tech through boot camps and being self-taught. I'm a boot camp grad myself. If you're running a community that is supporting people at all stages of the journey, you need to have balance in your community, because if you have 1,000 brand new developers and 5 mid to upper level developers, it's not going to be able to sustain itself. So thinking deliberately about how you're going to support people, even if that means you need to rethink how you're doing membership. You need to pause things and take a break for a while. Being communicative with your community goes a long way to building trust and showing that you're willing to support all of the people out there that you can. You also need to think about where your community is going to live. This is a big one, and we've seen over the pandemic, there have been so many Discords, and so I think like we are collecting them, right? Collecting Discords and Slacks. How many of them do you have that you never visit? I like recently pruned some of my Discords, and I still have like more than I want to admit. But you also have to think about what's expected from the interaction in those situations. So in Slack and Discord, if you have this async and synchronous conversation spaces, that's going to require a lot of time. You have to nurture those conversations. You have to grow with them. You have to connect people in that way. So I also think, this is a little bit of a tangent, but if we think about all of these Discords and all of these Slacks that have appeared during the pandemic, and you're thinking about building a community now, what's going to happen as people join more and more live events? Are they going to continue to participate in Slacks and Discords in the way that they have before? Are they going to decrease them? I also think that I'm starting to see a lot of Slack, Discord community spaces doing live events. So there's going to be this interesting pivot where people who have been doing a lot of virtual events are now doing live and in-person events. And I think as part of that, you need to think about, why are you doing live and in-person events? What is the purpose? If you don't understand the mission of your community, then it's going to be hard to answer that question. But I think that it needs to be a deliberate question that you ask yourself: where does our community live? Where do we want to grow? We can't leave this section without touching on what makes a successful community. There's growth, there's going to be support and resources needed. We need to know and understand what defines our community. Part of this is authenticity. Your community doesn't want to be marketed to. They want to be able to engage authentically. They want to know and understand the people around them. They want to have conversations to avoid the silence in the room. One of my favorites is having the ability to disagree. I think that's a really good sign of a healthy community. Are your members willing to disagree with each other? How do they engage when they disagree? Because we're complex and dynamic human beings. We should be disagreeing with each other. That's how we learn and grow, and that's how we deepen who we are. You have to be able to do that respectfully. You have to be able to acknowledge that sometimes the intent you have doesn't match the impact that you made. It has to be a safe space. People have to be willing to apologize. And, that starts with the team. Can you apologize to each other? Do you know how to do that? It shows that you're willing to grow and learn if you have that ability in your community. Another thing that's that's really important to a successful community is feedback. I've heard people say that you shouldn't ask for feedback unless you have a system set up to accept that feedback, but it's also a part of participation. There should be opportunities to provide feedback, whether that's by asking questions, having a feedback form, having a specific channel or time for feedback, but that allows you to engage and understand where you're going. And if you are tied to metrics, this can also help you with understanding where your metrics are. I think finding a way to provide clear lines of communication is super important, and that starts with finding ways to accept feedback. Community members don't live in a bubble. There needs to be interaction, and it's okay if not everybody wants to interact. There are a lot of the community people call them lurkers, like people that come and just kind of sit quietly and don't engage at all. That's fine, and you don't have to try to engage with everybody who is quiet. You do your best to support them where they are, and make that clear. If you want to participate, do it in a way that's comfortable for you. We would love to have you share and interact, but if you're not comfortable with that, we are totally here for you. Creating a space that feels safe will allow them to participate in a way that's meaningful for them, and that's what will keep them around. Again, we always want to provide these clear lines of communication. Whether your community is an external community or an internal community, people should know where they go for things. It's super frustrating when you don't know what to do, who to ask, where to go for the information. If you start something new, maybe you start a new job and you don't know where you go to lunch every day. Something as simple as that is really important to know. Do people take lunch here? What is the process for doing these things? Decreasing unknowns by creating clear paths of communication is incredibly important. If this sounds like a lot to consider, keep in mind it is. But I want to mention one alternative to starting your own community, and I think that this one is undervalued. Support an existing community. There are so many great communities out there. There's so many amazing community builders. And so reach out to them. How do you do that? You can live in those communities, attend their events, go and participate, answer questions in their Slack and Discord. Ask the community leaders if they need any help with things. Be specific. If you're good at writing documentation, say, I'm really good at writing documentation, or I really want to learn to write documentation. can I start by helping you out in writing some documentation for your community? Oftentimes, community builders don't know really what they need, and having somebody come in from the community and suggest something can make a huge difference. Other things that you might be able to do are things like do workshops, create a Discord bot that might make something easier for the community, speak, mentor. There are plenty of ways to help in a community. And it makes it a little bit harder to track those metrics if your team is all living in different communities, but you're investing in the larger community and you're building trust in that way. Okay, so back to the question. Do you need a community? I don't know, maybe you do, maybe you don't. I don't have an answer for that question. It really depends on what you're doing and what your goals are and what you've learned from that exploration. There are different approaches that you can take to find the community that supports your goals and understanding the needs of the people that you're serving. You need a team, you need a company to buy in, but most of all, you need a community to have a community. So, thank you for having me here. If you have any questions, you can ask me during the break.